Rugby union is a widely chosen sport that consists of intense movements and high contact. As a scrum half, I am required to constantly be following and being present at each ruck in order to control and organise play. This means the aerobic system will be utilised when performing, as I'm required to perform for a full-length game of 60 minutes. As a result of this, I need to consume high amounts of carbohydrates and protein, as this is the main source of fuel. Throughout a rugby match, research has proven that I will experience fatigue through a depletion of glycogen and experience production of byproducts of carbon dioxide lost through expiration and water lost through sweat. Rugby has a constantly changing environment, meaning that fartlek training is an appropriate method of training, allowing for me to utilize both aerobic and anaerobic systems. This is due to the combination of continuous and interval training with varying intensities, mirroring my sport, requiring me to adapt my intensity with each different movement. This includes a warm-up of static and dynamic stretching for 10 minutes, 10-meter sprints, 10-meter jog, and a one-on-one drill allowing for my shoulders to be prepared for tackling drills. This allows for my aerobic and anaerobic system being engaged, preparing my body for intense work. Fartlek training contributes to my warm-up in preparation for a game, as it allows for an increased range of motion, heart rate, and blood flow. This helps to enhance performance, reducing chance of injury. Muscle and strength development is key for my sport, as it requires high contact play where strength is required to maintain a high level of performance. In order to increase my performance levels, I need to target both upper and lower body for situations like tackling and rucking, representing specificity. For lower body, I use the leg extension as a fixed weight in order to target the quadriceps, allowing for greater leg strength for rucking. Free weighted exercises I utilize include weighted squats and weighted lunges, allowing for greater lower body strength. For upper body strength, due to not having access to fixed weights, I utilize free weights. This consists of bicep curls, bench press, and side lateral raise, allowing for my upper body to strengthen, advantageous for situations regarding rucks and tackling due to gained shoulder strength. Partnering this, I apply the principle of progressive overload, as this pushes me and allows for muscle hypertrophy to increase, evident through research which consists of increasing both muscle growth and size of the muscle cell. I do this through increasing the weight slightly every second week, introducing a new weight, resulting in increased strength. Dynamic and static stretching are key for rugby, as it allows for an increased range of motion, increased heart rate and blood flow, and prevent common injuries such as muscle tears and strains. Stretching is an essential component to my warm-up, since it decreases risk of injury and focuses on muscle preparation. Static stretching involves holding a stretch for 10 to 30 seconds and allows for my flexibility to be improved and range of motion to be increased, preventing injury. Typical static stretches that I'll perform include sumo squats and standing quad stretch. These lower body stretches target improved running as well as contact situations such as rucking and cleanouts. Upper body static stretches I perform include arm circles, head isometrics, and neck stretches, preparing me for contact situations such as tackling and rucking. Dynamic stretching is effective for reducing muscle stiffness and is essential for injury prevention. Traditional dynamic stretching that I perform include walking lunges, alternate toe touches, and leg swings. Tackling pads can further be introduced in order to warm up the shoulders and prepare for physical contact. A traditional warm-up would consist of fartlek training as well as dynamic and static stretching as discussed previously. This allows me to be physically prepared and ready for the high contact and intense match ahead. After a long intense game, a cooldown is essential, as research indicates that lactate levels are high and muscles begin to tense and stiffen. A cooldown will allow for my blood lactate levels to be decreased and muscle soreness to decline. A typical cooldown will consist of a jog and slowly decreasing the intensity, leading to the replenishment of energy. This is one of my recovery strategies and is an example of a physiological strategy. As a result of participating in rugby and training for the sport, my resting heart rate sits at 74 beats per minute, and according to the National Institute of Health, the average resting heart rate for an individual aged 10 plus is 60 to 100 beats per minute. This demonstrates that my resting heart rate is at an appropriate level, displaying increased efficiency of my cardiorespiratory system, since my heart doesn't have to work as hard to provide the required levels of oxygen. Along with this, my stroke volume increases due to a slight increase in heart size, allowing for more blood to enter the heart. My cardiac output increases as well due to the slight increase in heart size, meaning that more blood can leave the heart each minute. Motivation is a key factor for me to perform. As an individual, I am specifically affected by negative and intrinsic motivation. The reason for being negatively motivated is because I push myself to make the tackles necessary, due to the fear of being subbed off if I were to miss a tackle or perform bad play. I'm intrinsically motivated because even though my level of expertise within rugby isn't to a high professional level, I still choose to play the sport since I am satisfied and content because I enjoy participating. Anxiety and arousal is another key factor that affects performance. In competitive situations, such as when we are 20 meters away from our line, my state anxiety will rise as I may stress about potentially committing to a play that may not work. As a result of this, my trait anxiety is higher because before I commit to a play, I freeze for a second and think whether it's the correct move. Along with anxiety, stress is another factor that is introduced. My sources of stress come from personal pressure, since I have a desire to win and a fear of failure, which pushes me to make the tackles required and ensure my passes are accurate, and competition pressure from the opposition, and as a result of this, it drives not only me as an individual, but the team to perform and push for victory. Rugby requires high arousal levels as this will allow for me to experience an increase in strength, power, and aggression. The reason for this is due to the high levels of contact within the sport. Performing at this optimal arousal will allow for my performance to increase and allow for me to make game-changing plays such as powerful tackles, forcing a turnover in possession, gaining our team the opportunity to score. A psychological strategy that I utilize is mental rehearsal, allowing for me to improve my performance. I use this by visualizing my move before I perform. For example, for a kickoff, I will picture where I will place the kick prior to the action. This allows for my confidence levels to be lifted and helps to control the stress and anxiety levels that I experience within a game. My nutritional considerations are highly important as this can affect my performance levels immensely. Prior to a match, I need to ensure my hydration levels are maintained and that I consume 2 to 3 liters a day before a game and a further 250 mils 30 minutes before a game. The week prior to a match will traditionally be a consistent breakfast of berries, an up and go, and an apple, providing me with 52 grams of carbohydrates, giving me an acceptable amount as this is a key source of energy for the aerobic system. Lunch will consist of a Vegemite sandwich with butter on white bread and a bottle of water consisting of 40 grams of carbohydrates, adding to my carb intake to maximize my glycogen stores. For dinner, I would typically eat a meal high in protein as studies have shown that protein allows for muscle tissue to rebuild and develop. This would consist of lean meat, water, vegetables, and sometimes to add variety, seafood such as lobster. If I were to be playing at a higher level, I would need to increase my nutritional intake due to the higher demands placed upon my body. Research has shown that during performance, hydration is key to replenish fluids. In order to do this, I consume sufficient amount of water or sports drinks during halftime and breaks in play to refill glycogen stores. Post-performance involves a refueling of energy that I've lost from the game. I consume foods high in protein and carbs to replenish glycogen stores and rebuild muscle approximately 2 hours after play. I'll typically eat pasta with bolognese or lean meat as these are high in protein, adding to my protein uptake. If I were lacking protein and not meeting my daily requirement of 54.4 grams, evident research demonstrates I would have to utilize protein supplementation in order to meet the required levels. However, currently I am getting sufficient amounts. Another form of supplementation that I use is caffeine because it affects the central nervous system, as studies have proven that fatigue levels are altered and adrenaline is stimulated and is consumed 30 to 60 minutes before a game. This is a smart option for rugby since it's a sport that requires a higher arousal level in order to perform. Caffeine doesn't make me conscious or over-aroused, making it a smart option for me. Recovery strategies are an important aspect to maintain performance post-game. After a rugby match, I will utilize the physiological strategies of hydration and cooldown. As discussed previously, my cooldown is essential and hydration is vital, as this allows for me to decrease the risk of dehydration and replenish the fluids that were lost through each match. This would be approximately 1 liter. The recovery strategies I implement in my sport allow for me to relax and loosen my muscles, reducing chance of injury, ready for the next rugby match.